Now we're going to factor trinomials when the leading coefficient a is going to be greater than 1. And I can see that my a value, which is my leading coefficient, is greater than 1. It's 9. And because of that, the first thing I want to check is for a greatest common factor. Now, 9 goes into itself one time but does not go into 30. Therefore, I know that 9 cannot be the greatest common factor. What about 3? 3 goes into 9 3 times, 3 goes into 30 10 times, and 3 goes into 21 7 times. So therefore, I can factor out my 3. Now let's look at our variables. Don't want to forget that. X goes into x third 3 times, x squared twice, and x to the first once. So therefore, because it only goes once here, even though it goes 2 and 3 times here, our greatest common factor for our x is x to the first. All right, so we factored out our greatest common factor of 3x. What we need to do then is multiply 3x and see what it equals here and bring it inside here. So 3x times 3, x squared, gives me 9x to the third. 3x, or let's say 3 times 10 gives me 30, and x times 1x gives me x squared. So I want to bring down my positive sign, and that gives me 10x. X times x is x squared, so we only need 1. Bring down my second positive. 3 times 7 is 21, and we already have our single x here, so we're done. Now we look at our leading coefficient, and we see that it is 3, and that is greater than 1. So the technique that we're going to use to work with this is my father drives a silver Mercedes, MFDSM. Now, that's kind of silly, but what the most important thing is, because we're not talking about Mercedes here, is what these letters stand for. M stands for multiply, F factor, D divide, S simplify, M move. So we're going to use these 5 steps to complete our problem. All right, now the first step is multiply. So I'm going to take my 3, which is my leading coefficient, and I'm going to multiply it times 7. And what that does, when we bring down our 3x, we bring it down in each step. Our leading coefficient must come with it. What that does is frees up our x squared with the leading coefficient of 1, and therefore we can factor it. So we bring down our x squared plus our 10x and plus, because that doesn't change, but we have 3 times 7, and that equals 21. All right, once again, because my leading coefficient is 1, I can factor it. I mark off my m because we multiplied. Now we want to factor, and I can do it. So just like when we factor any number with the greatest, with the leading coefficient as 1, we bring down our variables. In this instance, it's x, and we read our signs. The second sign is positive, meaning they will be the same. And my first sign is positive. That means they will be the same and both plus. All right. So I'm looking for 2 factors of 21, and so I'm going to find them. 1 times 21 and 3 times 7. So I'm looking for the combination that will add to 10. Well, I know that 3 times 7 is 21, and 3 plus 7 is 10. 1 and 21 would add to 22 and would not be the right combination for our middle term. So we write down our 3 and 7. Okay, we're done with the factoring stage. Now it's time for D, divide. And when we divide, all we do is we bring our first number back and draw a line under each of our numbers that we have here. And that's it. Okay, now we bring down our 3x again, and it's time to simplify. So I bring down my x's and my pluses. And when I simplify 3 over 3, that equals 1. So I bring that down. And 3 will not go evenly into 7, so it remains a fraction. So when I do that, I take my denominator and move it in front of my 3x. In front of my x to make a 3x. So I've got 3x, and I bring down my 7, and that is my final answer. I want to put a box around that because we're finished. And notice, once again, in our answer, we brought our greatest common factor down each time. It must be there. Very good.